Good morning, everyone. I'm Andrea Kawabata. I'm an extension agent with the Kona Cooperative Extension Service under UH-CTAHR. Today, we're going to be having about 7 presentations in total for disaster assistance and crop insurance programs that we have here in Hawaii. And, the community has really come together to help support those that have been affected by the Kona low storms that happened in March as well, even in April. And we wanted to continue these efforts by reminding our communities that there's some really great programs still out there, but we need to also watch for some deadlines that are coming up really quickly. So, our farmers and ranchers are supported by the government, the university, nonprofits, and other organizations. And we have a great lineup of speakers today. So we'll run through these 7 presentations first, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers with our presenters. But you can also enter your questions into the chat throughout the presentations, and we'll go back through them during the Q&A. So we are recording this webinar, and we will have it posted up to our Kona Extension YouTube channel. So I want to say thank you very much to today's presenters and our funding agencies, which is USDA NIFA, UH-CTAHR, and the Western Extension Risk Management Center. So today we'll start off with a presentation by Kristen Kiriu. She is the Farms Programs Chief of the USDA Farm Service Agency, or FSA, out of the Hawaii and Pacific Basin State Office. So I'm going to stop sharing, and Kristen, you'll be able to share your screen.
So, good morning, everybody. My name is Kristen. Thanks for the introduction. I am the Farm Programs Chief that oversees all of the Hawaii and Pacific Basin FSA offices. And today I'll be kind of going through FSA and, some of our programs that we have available. So, quick introduction on FSA. If you're unfamiliar, we are a federal agency within the USDA. We have a bunch of different programs, but we like to categorize them under 2 divisions within FSA. So within FSA, we have farm programs, which kind of does the disaster assistance program or what people like to call grant money, but it's not really grant money, it's disaster assistance. And then we do farm loans. So today I'm going to be focusing on the disaster assistance side and the programs that we have available. They are very much farm bill driven. Some of them are permanent, some of them are one-time programs, and they're all intended to help commercial farmers and ranchers recover from disasters. Before I kind of get into programs, I wanted to take a quick moment to kind of remind everybody, to take photos and document before and after any time a disaster is going to hit. Most of our disaster programs require proof of the event and the loss. So we will be asking for photos. We'll be asking you for your inventory, your production data before and after the event to kind of compare, right? So just wanted to put that out there. I think that's the best thing that you as producers can do is make sure you document via photos, videos, your production, your inventory records before and after the event so that you can turn those into any of the agencies that have programs available. So for FSA, we have 3 main program areas under the Farm Programs Division. We have crop and livestock disaster assistance programs, we have conservation programs, and then we have ad hoc and other programs. So I'll kind of go through each of the different program areas and which programs kind of fall into each of the areas. But long story short, we have a lot of programs, a lot of acronyms. I encourage you all to reach out to our county offices. On my last slide, I have the contacts for each of the offices. I encourage you guys to either reach out to one of them. You can reach out to me. We'll get you contacted with somebody. There's no expectation for anybody to remember any of these acronyms or program names. Call our office, explain to us what you lost, what your operation is going through, and then we'll be able to kind of help you decide which programs to apply to. So under the crop and livestock disaster programs, we have 5 main programs. We have the non-insured crop disaster assistance program, or NAP. We have the livestock forage program, which is LFP. We have the livestock indemnity program, LIP. We have ELAP, the emergency livestock assistance program, and then we have TAP, the tree assistance program. So what all of these programs have in common is that they all provide relief for losses due to natural disasters. So, there's a variety of different types of losses that we cover, and I'll kind of go through each one of them individually on a very high level because there's, a lot of eligibility, but on a very high level, I'll go through each of the programs. So for NAP, this is our insurance product. So this program provides financial assistance to producers of non-insurable crops that are affected by natural disasters. So we're covering production loss, right? Eligible crops are basically anything that's not coffee, papaya, macnut, or banana. Those four crops are commercially insurable. And I believe Kristen's going to go after me and she'll be presenting the RMA side on the commercial insurance for those four crops. But anything that's not those four crops, we can likely cover under NAP. So there's varying sign-up deadlines. I tried to put the deadlines there. These are common buckets of crops. So fruit and vegetable, grass. So for the ranchers, we can cover your actual grass or your forage, right? Aquaculture, floriculture, nursery, Christmas trees, honey, sod. We cover all those different types of crops. So I put the deadlines there. It is an insurance product, so you have to sign up before the year before, right? So those are the deadlines. So if you sign up by 12/31 of this year, you'll have 2027 coverage, right? From January 1st through December 31st for fruit and vegetable. There is a service fee per crop, $325, but I will say currently, still currently, anybody who is considered historically underserved, so socially disadvantaged, limited resource, or beginning farmer rancher, you can get NAP coverage for free. It's really simple. It's one form. I'll talk about it a little bit later in the presentation. It's one form and it's a self-certification, right, to certify yourself as historically underserved. So you could get NAP coverage for free. There's two types of coverage. There's basic coverage, which is 50-55, which means it's catastrophic coverage. You'd have to lose 50% production loss in order to be eligible for a payment. And then there's buy-up coverage. So not all crops can get buy-up coverage, but the crops that are eligible for buy-up coverage, you can get up to 65-100. So you would only need 35% loss in order to trigger payment. For basic coverage, there's no premium. So if you're historically underserved, NAP coverage on a basic level is completely free. You just need to sign up before the crop year starts, and then you would have coverage for the entire crop year. For buy-up, we do charge a premium. It's going to be based on your max dollar value that you selected at the time of application. But I think we can do calculations and estimated premiums for you upfront. So we can kind of play around with the numbers, give you options, and then you can make that decision before you actually select the coverage. The payment limitation for basic coverage is $125,000 per year. For buy-up coverage, it goes up to $300,000. So there's a little bit of incentive to get buy-up coverage if you're a bigger time producer and you think that you could potentially need a little bit more on the payment limitation side. Again, it is an insurance product, so you have to sign up before the crop year starts. I encourage everybody to just call our office now. You can sign up for 2027, right? Potentially some producers may have had coverage for 2026 if you had a historically underserved form or the CCC 860 form on file with us. So if you did have any losses from the Kona low storm and it's not one of those four commercially insurable crops, contact our office, see if you're just so happen to have coverage. We had a bunch of producers actually have coverage and they didn't really know because they filled out the form. So contact our office on that. Second program, LFP, this is for ranchers. We pay for forage feed loss due to drought. It's based on the U.S. Drought Monitor. For 2026, currently Hawaii County and Maui County is already eligible. So any of the ranchers that are on those two counties can already come into our office and apply for drought that was occurring at the beginning of the year, pre-Kona low storms. So we're doing sign up on that. The deadline's not until March 1st of next year. So there's a bunch of time for you to come into our office and sign up for that program. LIP, ELAP, and TAP, those three programs run year-round. So all year round, you can come and sign up for these anytime you notice you have a loss. For LIP, the indemnity program, we are covering livestock deaths due to adverse weather. So if you had a cow that drowned in the flood, if you had goats that died in the flood, things like that, we would cover you per head under the LIP program. For ELAP, we cover honeybee, hive, and colony loss, farm-raised fish, death loss, feed loss, livestock. We cover feed losses. We do water hauling under that program. It's kind of our catch-all program for the livestock side. So I encourage everybody to come in and talk story on that one. There might be something that isn't there that might be covered under ELAP. There was just too much to list. Tree Assistance Program or TAP, that program covers tree loss due to an eligible weather event. So your trees had to have died. And I do know that there's new rules coming out. So I think we don't have to hit the 15% death mortality loss anymore, and that we can cover any tree loss soon besides normal mortality. So I think there's going to be some program changes under the TAP program soon. So again, if you had any type of loss during the Kona low storm, we encourage you to even small losses, report those to us as soon as possible. Under our conservation programs, we have 4 different programs. We have the Emergency Conservation Program, ECP, Emergency Forest Restoration Program, or EFRP, Conservation Reserve, CRP, and then Grassland, CRP. The big program for the Kona lows is ECP. So we are currently taking sign up for all 4 Hawaii counties for the Kona low storms that happened in March. The program is open until June 1st, 2026 currently, but we are working on a 60-day extension, which we are sure that we're going to get. We're pretty positive we're going to get that. So as soon as we get the extension approved, the deadline will then take it out to July 31st. And we will be sending out a news bulletin to let everybody know that we're extending it another 60 days. So that's to come. But for now, officially, I just put June 1st on the slideshow just because that's what we have officially. So for this program, we do cost share to restore your farmland to pre-disaster conditions, and we can do a 25% payment in advance at the time of approval. And we can cover things like debris removal, minor grading and shaping, fence replacement or repair, and then conservation structure replacement as well. Under the other 3 programs, so EFRP, we pay to restore private forest after an eligible disaster. We are working on sign up for that for the Kona lows for Hawaii County and Honolulu County. We received a few reports of private forest land that got washed out. So we're working on sign up for that. We will be sending out an announcement once we do a sign up period for that program. But again, there's losses, report them to us as soon as possible. CRP is just our voluntary 10 to 15-year contract to put land into conservation. There's general CRP and continuous CRP. If anybody's interested in that, contact us. And grassland CRP is for ranchers. It's voluntary. And basically what you're doing is you're signing up for a contract period to keep your land in pasture. So that's a good one for the ranchers to sign up on if they already have, active pasture grazing management plan. It's an additional yearly annual rental payment that we would pay you to basically keep grazing. And then under our ad hoc or other programs, we have 2 programs currently active. We have the Reimbursement Transportation Cost Program, or RTCP, and then we have the Food Safety Cost Share Certification Program, or FSC-SC. Under RTCP, I think a lot of producers are already familiar with this program. We've had it since 2009, I believe. It helps offset transportation costs. So, because we live in Hawaii, we have, a bag of fertilizer costs, $10 more than if you were to buy it in the mainland. So the idea behind the program is to help with those transportation costs, those extra transportation costs that our producers have. There is a maximum payment limitation of $8,000 per year. Sometimes we apply a factor depending on how many people apply. This year, I believe we're going to have 3.5 million to share between Hawaii, Pacific Basin, Alaska, Puerto Rico, and U.S. Virgin Islands. So we do share that pot of money, the 3.5 million, with the non-CONUS states and territories. We do expect the 2026 RTCP sign up to open July 2026, and it usually runs through September. So we have a good couple of months to get signups there, and we'll be putting out information as soon as we know when the signup's going to open on that one. For FSC-SC, we provide cost share to specialty crop operations that have been certified food safety handlers. Any of those costs to get the food safety, we can help pay cost share, a percentage of that as well. So just a small program out there to help, with some of the costs, the certification costs. Other programs that we have, most of them are very much farm bill driven. I know probably a bunch of you have heard of some of the additional disaster programs that that we have out there. Basically, it's to supplement our permanent disaster programs, make producers whole. My suggestion to everybody for that is just make sure you file your yearly acreage reports. A lot of the times these ad hoc programs that come out after the fact are based on your acreage report that you filed for previous years and your disaster damage report that you filed for previous years. So we just encourage everybody to continue to, work with us throughout the year. And then the other plug I wanted to put out there was we are expecting the sign up to open soon for the Assistance for Specialty Crop Farmers Program, or ASCF. The acreage reporting deadline was 4/24 earlier this year for all of the crops that were eligible. So we are expecting that soon. I wanted to throw this slide out real quick just to give everybody kind of an idea of how many dollar amount, we've been putting out for all of the FSA farm programs. So all of the conservation programs, the disaster assistance programs, the ad hoc programs, this is kind of where we're at in the past years. So if you're interested, where do you start? Where should you start? All producers and applicants to USDA programs are required to establish basic eligibility and farm records. Whether you're working with FSA or NRCS, you will have to complete the same set of forms. The 2047 is very basic information. We're looking for your name, your contact info, your tax ID number, things like that. And then we have a few other forms that we're going to ask you to complete as part of the basic eligibility package. And then we will be asking for your land documentation, right? Your lease, your deed, your TMK number, something to verify that you have control of the property. If you work with one of our staff members to help you fill out all of the forms and you're an individual filling out the forms and trying to do basic eligibility with us, it'd probably take 15, 20 minutes maximum. It's not that difficult. A lot of it is writing your name and address over and making sure you understand the question. So it's not too daunting. We encourage everybody to come sign up, even if there's not a program that you're available to sign up for now. If you get your basic eligibility and farm records in our system already, it's really easy for us to help you and sign up in the future. So we do a monthly newsletter, e-newsletter, and then any of our programs opening, our news releases, we release them via email. If you go to our website, scroll to the very bottom, you can sign up to get FSA updates. And then you can even specifically drill down to just get the Hawaii and Pacific Basin updates, where you don't have to get nationwide updates. You're just getting stuff that we publish here locally. So I encourage everybody to sign up for that. And then my last slide, I just wanted to put it up there for everybody. These are all the contact information for each of the individual county offices. I'm at the state office level, so if you can't get in touch with anybody, feel free to reach out to me and then I can point you in the right direction. Our farm program staff can also help point you in the direction of the farm loan team as well. So if you're looking for a farm loan, we can also help you do that. But thanks, Andrea.
All right, thanks, Kristen. Okay, so our next presenter is Cristin Cantan. She is the risk management specialist from the USDA Risk Management Agency, or RMA, out of their Davis Regional Office, and I will be playing her presentation and sharing. Unless Kristen, would you like to say anything before I start?
No, thank you for sharing it. But yeah, I'm Kristen. I'm part of the Davis Regional Office. So we cover Hawaii, Arizona, California, Nevada, and Utah. Um, I did give a little background in the recorded presentation already. So if you guys have any questions after that, then please feel free to ask. Thank you. Aloha and welcome to USDA Risk Management Agency's presentation on crop insurance programs available in Hawaii. Just a quick disclaimer before I begin, the purpose of the following material is to promote awareness of risk management concepts and to highlight USDA's risk management products, features, benefits, and availability. This material does not change the content or meaning of current policy provisions, filed actuarial documents, or approved procedures. Here's an overview of what this presentation will cover. What is crop insurance? Programs available in Hawaii, causes of loss, duties in the event of damage or loss, subsidies, direct marketing and record keeping, and locating an agent. What is crop insurance? It is a risk management tool that provides financial protection for farmers and ranchers when an eligible cause of loss affects their insured crop. It is a public-private partnership between approved insurance providers and the federal government. Here's how it works. RMA develops and approves policies, conducts underwriting reviews, and looks at new products and expansions. The AIPs are the commercial insurance companies that have a public-private partnership with RMA and market and service the policy sold. Agents work directly with the producer, answering questions and helping them to complete the application process and so on. And the producer is the one who commercially farms or ranches and wants to utilize the risk management programs available. Jumping into program availability. First up, we have the Hawaii Tropical Fruit Program that consists of banana, coffee, and papaya. Keep in mind that although all three crops fall under one program, requirements may vary slightly between the crops. I will briefly go over each fruit in the upcoming slides. Coverage for this program is provided through an actual production history plan of insurance that insures against yield losses due to unavoidable natural causes. The insurance guarantee is based on the individual producer's yield history. Currently, this program is insurable in Hawaii, Honolulu, Kauai, and Maui, and it can be offered in other Hawaii counties by written agreement. Starting with banana, there are two types of bananas that are insurable, Brazilian and Cavendish. Insurable practice include what's listed here. The sales closing date, or more commonly called the final sign-up date, is May 31. This is the last day to apply for new coverage, make changes to existing policies, or select coverage levels. Acreage and production need to be reported by July 15. These dates can be found on our actuarial site, and I will provide the link at the end of the presentation. The insurance period begins June 1 and ends May 31. All banana acreage planted prior to June 1 of each crop year is insurable. Moving on to coffee. All varieties are insurable. The upcoming sales closing date of December 31 is for the upcoming 2027 crop year. The deadline for 2026 has already passed. The insurance period begins January 1 and ends on May 31. Coffee acreage is insurable when it reaches 3 years old before December 31 of the crop year. The final crop in our Hawaii Tropical Fruit Program is papaya. There are two insurable types, non-GMO and GMO varieties that include rainbow and sunup, and any cross of the two with another non-GMO variety. The sales closing date is May 31, and acreage and production need to be reported by July 15. The insurance period begins on June 1 and ends on May 31. Acreage must be more than 12 months old, but less than 4 years old on May 31, preceding the crop year to be insurable. Another crop policy we offer is for macadamia nut. Macadamia nuts are also insured through the actual production history insurance plan. This policy is insurable in Hawaii, Kauai, Maui, and other Hawaii counties by written agreement. The sales closing date is December 31. Acreage and production reporting dates are shown here. Insurance begins on January 1 and ends on June 30 of the following year. To be insurable, the macadamia nuts need to be on trees that are 5 years old. Age is determined as of January 1 of each crop year. The next program available in Hawaii is the Hawaii Tropical Tree Program, which includes coverage for the trees of the tropical fruits just mentioned, banana, coffee, and papaya. Coverage for this program falls under the tree-based dollar insurance plan, which protects against damage due to naturally occurring perils. Insurance is based on the number of trees. This program is available in Hawaii, Honolulu, Kauai, and Maui. Other Hawaii counties are insurable by written agreement. The banana tree types eligible for coverage are Cavendish and Brazilian. The sales closing date is December 31. To be insurable, trees need to be set out 12 months prior to December 31, preceding the crop year. If you are interested in getting coverage for your coffee trees, the sales closing date is also December 31. And just like bananas, trees are insurable when set out 12 months prior to December 31, preceding the crop year. Just like the fruit, papaya trees are insurable by the same two types, non-GMO and GMO. The sales closing date is the same as bananas and coffee, December 31. To be insurable, papaya trees need to be at least 9 months old but not older than 4 years old by December 31 before the beginning of the crop year. There is a policy that insures macadamia trees and has a sales closing date of November 30. Trees need to be at least a year old to be insurable. There is one endorsement that can be attached to the Hawaii tropical fruit, tree, or nut policies. It is the Hurricane Indemnity Protection and Wind Index, or for short, HFWI endorsement. If elected, it will add additional coverage to those policies when sustained hurricane winds impact the eligible county. Counties eligible for an indemnity will be based on the data from NOAA Hurricane Wind Extents data. A producer can sign up for this endorsement at the same time of their crop policy. Here is a recap of the sales closing dates for the Hawaii Tropical Fruit and Tree and Macadamia Nut and Tree programs. I mentioned it earlier, but I will include RMA's homepage so you can look at these dates later. Moving on to a few more programs we have available in Hawaii. The Whole Farm Revenue Protection Program provides coverage for all commodities produced on the farm under one policy. It insures any farm or ranch revenue up to $17 million. The coverage amount is based on the producer's Schedule F tax form. The producer may combine their individual crop policy with whole farm. For example, a macadamia nut grower can have both a MacNut policy and a whole farm policy. Microfarm is like the whole farm program, but is designed for smaller farms and insures up to $350,000 in farm revenue. It cannot be combined with another policy. There are a few sales closing dates for both of these programs to accommodate the application for sign-up based on when the grower files their taxes. The Pasture Rangeland Forage Hawaii program is available throughout the mainland and currently is only available for Hawaii Island. It insures against the lack of precipitation within a given time period and covers perennial forages with the intended use of grazing. The sales closing date is December 1. Eligible causes of loss for the Hawaii Tropical Fruit, Hawaii Tropical Tree, and Macadamia Nut and Tree programs are similar, so I compiled it into two tables, but please check the crop provisions and contact or follow up with your agent as needed. I've noted the instances where the cause of loss will not be insured. So for example, if damage caused by disease of insects because of insufficient or improper application for insect or pest control measures were applied, it will not be covered. And for coffee, nematodes are not an insured cause of loss if trees are less than 5 years old. For fire, it is only eligible if due to a natural cause, if weeds and other forms of undergrowth have not been controlled or pruning debris have not been removed from the field, it will not count as a covered loss. Proper measures to control wildlife need to be taken, and if any of these causes of loss mentioned are because of failure of irrigated water supply, it will not be covered. The insured must receive authorization prior to removing any trees that have been infected with a disease. This slide is specific to whole farm and microfarm. So since these programs are a revenue-based plan of insurance that provides revenue protection, a decline in market price is an insurable cause of loss. But again, only for the whole farm revenue protection and microfarm programs. And just to be clear, for the other crops I mentioned, it is not an insurable cause of loss when a producer is simply unable to market their crop. Insurable causes of loss needs to fit the requirements outlined in the previous slides and/or in the applicable crop policy. This slide right here is very important. In the event of damage or loss, the insured must notify their agent right away. The key takeaway from this slide is to emphasize the timeline of when action needs to be taken by both the insured and the agent. I've listed a few examples, but please refer to the applicable crop policy or talk with your agent for a full list of duties. In some cases, a grower is not allowed to prune or destroy trees until the unit has been inspected and consent is authorized. Being that crop insurance is regulated by the federal government, the premiums are subsidized. However, there are private providers who sell their own crop insurance and are not regulated by the federal government and do not give subsidies. If you log on to RMA's homepage, there is a cost estimator tool that will give you an idea of what your premium may be, or you can simply contact an agent. In the next few slides, I did put together some tables to give you an idea of what the coverage level to premiums and subsidies look like. So for example, if you have a fruit, tree, or nut policy, and you elect the coverage level at 50%, your premium would be subsidized by 67%, allowing you to pay only 33% of the total premium cost for your crop policy. For the whole farm revenue protection and microfarm programs, coverage levels begin at 50% and go up to 90%, with the insured paying anywhere from 20 to 44% of the total premium cost for their policy. The Pasture Rangeland Forage Hawaii program, coverage levels begin at 70% and go up to 90%. Leaving the insured to pay anywhere from 41 to 49% of the total premium cost. After going over the programs available in Hawaii, I do want to mention record keeping. I know more commonly in Hawaii, a lot of our locally harvested crops are direct marketed, meaning sold through an on-farm or roadside stand or farmer's market. So in instances when the producer does direct market, a market certification can be completed yearly with their agent. This allows them to direct market any portion of their crop and suffices to when acceptable verifiable records are not available. As a reference, here are examples of acceptable records for the Hawaii Tropical Fruit Program: pick records, daily farm logs, and cash register receipts. On top of the previously mentioned requirements, macadamia nut processors must indicate weight of sound wet in shell by a variety on their verifiable records. Lastly, I just want to show you where you can go to locate an agent. If you go to our home site at www.rma.usda.gov, on the top you will see Tools and Reports. Click the drop-down and click Agent Locator. It will take you to this page where you then will click on Find Local Insurance Agents with the RMA Agent Locator. This page might be a little tricky. At the top left corner, you should see a box where it allows you to enter a location. If you do not see this box, zoom out of your screen a little bit. From this page, you can select your options. So under Specialty, you'll see that you can search for agents by crop, livestock, or both. For distance, be sure to select No Limit. Because almost all AIPs are in the mainland, you probably won't have any options if selecting a shorter distance. Make sure to select Hawaii and the county or counties you're interested in. And then below to the left of the map, you'll see your results. Here are two good resources that can be found on RMA's homepage: the Agent Locator, which is the one I just showed, and the Actuarial Information Browser, where you can find information specific to each crop. There it will show you insurable types and practices, important dates like the sales closing dates, acreage reporting dates, and so on. Again, both can be found under the Tools and Report page. Also on RMA's homepage, you can view frequently asked questions. There's upcoming webinars and events that are posted. Lots of good starter information on there. So please go and take a look at that. This concludes my presentation. I've included my email along with my seniors, so if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. All right. I have been seeing some warnings for a strong El Nino coming up, which can bring in storms to or near Hawaii. So, it might be a good idea if you don't have any kind of insurance or programs that help to provide any kind of risk management for your farms. You might want to take a look at some of these. It's kind of like health insurance. If you have it, great. You can use that health insurance when you need it. If you don't have it and you need to go to the hospital or a doctor, you end up paying the full amount, right? Because it's not insured. So please take a look at some of these if you're interested. Our next presenter is Nicholas Saumweber. He is the Assistant Director of the Pacific Islands Area Programs for the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS. So we'll have him take it away.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Nicholas Saumweber, and I am the Assistant Director for Programs with NRCS in the Pacific Island areas. I am going to share my screen. Oh, I already am, but I think I want to share a different one. Please excuse me. I should have had this ready. Okay. So I'm here to discuss a little bit today about the opportunities available for emergency programs within NRCS. They do follow our typical programs that we have. All of our emergency programs are usually grouped under a lot of the similar programs that many of you maybe already participate in. However, often we do special signups or announcements for them. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how our programs work. Overview of showing where our field office locations are, talk about conservation programs, steps to assistance, how a contract works, existing versus new applicants, the interagency collaboration that we have, a brief plug for our regenerative pilot program, and then the Assistant Director for Engineering, John Matthews, will wrap us up with a brief discussion of emergency watershed programs. So just a brief overview of where the field offices are located. We have one on every major Hawaiian island, 3 on the Big Island. If you ever need to locate your service center, this works for FSA as well as NRCS. We are sister agencies, so we're co-located in many places. You can look up our service center locator, and the link is at the bottom. A copy of these slides will be provided to Andrea so that she can share with everyone later. So we have a couple of different conservation programs. I'm going to be highlighting and talking about the first 2 at the top there, which are Environmental Quality Incentive Program and the Conservation Stewardship Program. So the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, the easiest way I can explain it is see a problem, fix it. That's kind of the point of this program. We go out to a farm and we see that you have erosion control issues. We can help with practices to address that. We go onto your farm and see that maybe your pastures are overgrazed. We can assist you with implementing a system to address that. But it can assist with addressing natural resource concerns related to water quality, surface water, soil health, erosion, wildlife, as well as mitigation against droughts. All of our programs utilize what's called financial assistance rates, and they're designed to approximate 75 to 90% of the cost. A contract length for NRCS, if you enter into a contract, can vary, but it typically depends on the extent of the practices that are included. Can usually range between 1 and 5 years. In our contracts, we do have advance payments that are available to historically underserved participants at 50% of the contracted amount. Just some examples of practices that might be applicable, and this is a very small list. It all depends on what your needs and concerns are. But mulching, high tunnel systems, watering facilities, grass waterways, many more. Information about the EQIP fact sheet can be found at that link there. The other main program that we work on with NRCS with producers directly is our Conservation Stewardship Program. Unlike EQIP, this program rewards high levels of existing conservation and then incentivizes the client to take that conservation to the next level. Basically, try and one-up yourself a little bit. Unlike EQIP, CSP offers annual payments for benchmark conservation activities. So throughout the course of your contract, which is 5 years, you'll have an annual payment that is at minimum $4,000, plus the implementation of any additional practices or conservation incentives that encourage you to take it to the next level. The rates for that are locked, 75% payment rates for additional activities, and it does not offer advance payments. But a fact sheet is available for you there if you're curious. So I want to talk a little bit about how do you get assistance with NRCS. Many of you maybe have already participated with us in our programs before, and so this might be old hat to you. But for those of you who haven't, I hope that this gives a little bit of a summary of how assistance with NRCS works. So the first step is always planning, right? So we provide landowners and operators with free technical assistance or advice for their land. Your conservation planner will ultimately help you determine if the financial assistance is appropriate. Sometimes what folks want to do on their land is a great idea. It's fantastic. It's just we may not have a mechanism to pay for that specific thing. And so sometimes folks just come to us wanting advice, and that is always free. That's always free and available to anyone who might want it. The next step is if you are determined to be eligible for financial assistance, like the planner looked and said, oh yeah, that's something we can help with. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to fill out our conservation program application. We accept applications on a continual basis. We do usually announce signups. For instance, we did announce a signup for fiscal year 26, and that period has closed. So general applications at this point we can still accept, but they'll be batched for future signups. For the emergency programs that we're offering now, we are accepting applications on a continuous basis. And so if you have concerns about conservation practices that either you have installed in the past and are now damaged and need replacement, or if you have new emergency needs, please don't hesitate. We can accept your application at any time. Don't worry about if the application seems complicated, just contact our field office. We'll be happy to walk you through how to fill that out. And a reminder that if you're applying as an entity, please make sure on the application that you include all the members of the entity. For instance, if I'm farming with Kristen over at FSA and our name is Growing Hard Farms, then I want to make sure that both Kristen and myself are listed under the application for Growing Hard Farms. So we have two different types of eligibility. You have person eligibility and land eligibility. Kristen had mentioned this before, but FSA is our sister agency, and they are, for lack of a better term, one of the holders of the records. So we do work with them to make sure that we establish your farm data. And so if you're already working with FSA, then we likely already have that. But if you're not, then we'll connect you with FSA to get that information so that you are eligible for our programs. You can be an individual, an entity, or a nonprofit. These programs are not designed for state or local governments. They're designed for the private sector. And so you have to be an individual, entity, or a nonprofit. You also must meet the adjusted gross income provisions, which basically says that these programs aren't designed to help out people who ostensibly can already help themselves. So you have to be able to certify that your adjusted gross income for you and your entity is not greater than $900,000 annually. Most participants in Hawaii don't have a problem with this. Then the second portion of this is land eligibility. Now, in land eligibility, you can either be the owner or the operator. And this is important because you don't have to own the land in question in order to manage it well, in order to farm it. You can be a tenant farmer. So we do need to make sure that we have documentation of control of land, though. So we do that in the form of getting a copy of either the deed, a lease, or another written agreement. If you're not the owner and you do enter into a contract with NRCS, you do have to obtain landowner concurrence for any physical conservation practices that are going in. And this is just to make sure that the landowner is aware that, hey, my tenant farmer is going to be installing a watering facility or a grassed waterway. So just be prepared for that, just in case you need to talk with your landlord in order to put in conservation practices. Once we've identified what you're going to do, we take your applications and we rank and assess them based off of their ability to meet targeted resource concerns. Funding is always contingent on the availability of funds, but we do have funding available for both this program as well as we have set aside some funding for emergency applications. We rank our applications annually, and then if you're selected, a contract is developed and it's moved to the final step, which is implementation. So the contract will be provided to you as the client. It outlines the who, what, where, and how much. Any practices that are included in that contract must follow NRCS standards and specifications. So we do have scientifically reviewed ways of doing certain things, and so we do request that you follow our guidelines and standards for it. Advance payments are available under EQIP to eligible clients if needed. So a little bit about how a contract works. If a contract is awarded, NRCS will provide you with the designs and specifications for those items. The actual costs to install a practice may be more or maybe less, but NRCS is going to pay you for the extent installed according to the agreed payment rate. So what that means is, say you're installing cover crops and your plan to install 50 acres of cover crops, and NRCS agrees to pay you at a rate of $50 per acre. The cost to you might be closer to $60 or $70 per acre, or it might be closer to $30 or $40 per acre. But NRCS is going to pay you the agreed upon rate in that contract, regardless of the cost to you. And so that's kind of how the payment works. And we're also going to pay you for the actual amount installed. So if you were planned to do 50 and you only put in 48, we're only going to pay you for 48. You're responsible for installing the items in the contracts according to the schedule, and at least one item must be completed within the first 12 months of the contract being signed. NRCS, if needed, can assist with preparing any documentation that's needed for permits. Again, however, it's ultimately the responsibility of the client in order to pay for any fees that might be associated with getting those permits approved and cleared. But we absolutely can assist you with preparing anything that's needed for said permits. If you indicate that you need an advance payment for your practices and you're eligible for it, then NRCS can work with you to get the advance payments. For advance payments, you do need to show us documented proof that you're ready to receive the advance payments. If you need it, for instance, to help mobilize equipment to install a conservation practice. Have you talked with contractors? Have you gotten a quote? Have you gotten your design? Is the permits all cleared? And so we basically make sure that we double check that you're sitting on go and you're ready to take that advance payments, because you must expend that payment within 90 days of getting it in order to stay in compliance. So once you've wrapped up the practice, you've planted the cover crops or installed your waterers or put in your grass waterway or planted your trees, whatever is in the contract, you can notify us that the practice has been installed and is ready for inspection. You may have already notified us halfway through and we may have inspected some of it for you, but either way, now you're saying the whole thing's done and you're ready for inspection. So NRCS will come out, inspect what you've done, make sure it meets our standards and specs, talk with you about any potential corrections that might be needed. Sometimes, if you're planting a windbreak or something, maybe a tree species got missed, or maybe the spacing was a little off and we needed to fill in some gaps. So we'll work with you to provide any corrections that are needed. And then NRCS will issue you the final payment for that contract item. Contracts are limited in terms of how large they can go. So CS contracts limitations for EQIP is $450,000. So that's the absolute maximum that you can get in a single contract. You can have more than one contract, but an individual contract can only ever go up to $450,000. And conversely, for CSP, that number is $300,000. Now, USDA is in the business of helping farmers, not in the business of putting farmers out of a job. So I want to preface that while these are financial assistance contracts, they are very farmer friendly. we do acknowledge that there are reasons beyond your control where you might not be able to finish everything that is inside your contract. And so you may need to cancel the contract because of financial hardship, medical hardship, or loss of control of land. So long as previous conservation practices that were installed can function independently, and you don't have any advance payments that haven't been completed yet, NRCS will generally be able to let you go from that contract, no harm, no foul. However, if we do have issues where we can't resolve certain things, such as inability to communicate with you, contract being behind schedule despite us letting you know, we may need to terminate. And if we terminate, we always work with you to give you an opportunity to come back into compliance before termination occurs. So a little bit about how programs might work for existing applicants and contracts. So if you already have an active contract with NRCS and some practices that you had previously completed inside that contracts are now damaged and in need of replacement, please contact your local field office. Provide pictures of the damage to the completed practices, and then NRCS will work to identify the cost of repairing or replacing them. Likelihood, a good example that I just heard of today is we had a applicant who had put in a high tunnel, and then the high tunnel structure remained intact from the storms. However, the plastic got all ripped to pieces. And so NRCS were working with that client in order to identify what would be the cost of replacing just the plastic, because that's the only part that was damaged. So we'll need to work with them to get extent needing repair or replacement, as well as any quotes for the cost. And then we may be able to add that additional item into your existing contracts. Unfortunately, this only works for people who have active or completed contracts that have not passed their expiration date. And so if you have an active contract with NRCS and there were practices that you installed as part of that contract that are now not working and need a replacement, please reach out, because we may have an easier path to help you replace those. Now, if you don't have an existing contract with NRCS, then we're going to work with you to basically submit a new application. So once again, always start with a contact to your local field office, provide pictures of damage to completed practices, work with NRCS to identify the cost of repairing or previously installing them. Now, and then NRCS will help you submit an application. If you already have an application with NRCS that's pending, please contact your field office. We can work with them. You can work with them to amend your application to include any emergency conservation practices, or they can assist you with submitting a new application. When we're dealing with new contracts, we do have to go through our regular eligibility requirements. So we do work very closely together with the Farm Service Agency. We are considered sister agencies. And so FSA, you heard Kristen talk about the Emergency Conservation Program. FSA, once those signups have closed, FSA will be sharing that list of clients with NRCS so that we can help catch anyone that falls out of that program. FSA's program is very expansive, the Emergency Conservation Program. However, there may be some things within that program that just are not covered by ECP. And so our goal is with that to be able to follow up and assist in utilizing our programs to help address those. We do work very closely with FSA on ECP. Kristen had mentioned in her presentation on ECP that conservation structures are included as part of ECP, and those are always referred to NRCS for technical design and implementation requirements. So I just want to let you know that if you did sign up for ECP, we're going to be getting your information, and we might reach out to you after FSA has provided their assistance to you or before to see if there are any other gaps in the assistance that might be needed. This is just a small plug that I wanted to put in. We do have a new initiative focused on regenerative agriculture. It's a new national priority that prioritizes regenerative agricultural practices, and we are targeting at least 25% of our program funding to this program. It's available and encouraged in both EQIP and CSP. We have a list of conservation practices here, and don't worry if those numbers don't mean anything. They're just practice codes to identify what things are. So for instance, 340 is a cover crop. 595 is pest management. 528 is grazing management. 484 is mulching. So don't worry too much about the practice codes. I just put them in there so that you had an idea of what practices were available and eligible. We also look at your existing practices. So if you already are doing one of these and you want to get credit for it, then NRCS can assist. We have 4 major requirements for this program. It's a 5-year contract for both EQIP and CSP. We have to look and meet all soil and water resource concerns by the end of the contract. And then you must have soil health testing planned at the beginning and end of your contract. And the goal is to showcase to farmers how implementing simple conservation practices like the ones identified above can significantly help improve your soil health. And so that's why we ask folks to, that's why we require soil health testing in the beginning and the end, so that you can see what it looked like before and you can see what your soil looked like afterwards. And then you must include at least one of the practices above, either existing or planned. I'm going to turn this over real quick to John Matthews, who's going to talk a little bit of our Emergency Watershed Protection Program, which is a program that's available to our state sponsors. John, are you online?
I am online, yeah.
All right, go for it, John.
All right, thanks. So I'm John Matthews, Assistant Director of Engineering and Program Manager for the Watershed Branch operations in the Pacific Island area, and EWP is one of these programs. So EWP is eligible for public and private landowners for assistance, but they must be represented by a sponsor. The sponsors include legal subdivisions of state, such as city, county, general improvement districts, conservation districts, or any Native American tribe or tribal organization as defined in Section 4 of the Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act. EWP is a program that's supposed to provide assistance to loss of life and loss of property. It's utilized by doing water improvements to watershed impairments. Activities, but not limited to, are debris removal, stream bank channels, undermine and unstable stream banks, jeopardized water control structures and public infrastructure, windblown and debris removal, and also damaged areas that have highly erodible due from advanced flooding and fire and lack of vegetation. I'm not going to go into too much more of what the program can be utilized for. It's really specific to the type of work that needs to be done to improve watershed impairment and to protect property and life. And as all cases are very unique, from utilizing the program from flooding, which is being done currently, to the fire recovery from 2023 in the island of Maui. Currently, we do have sponsors on the city for the island of Oahu. The city and county of Honolulu is sponsoring an Emergency Watershed Protection Program project. Also on the county of Maui, Department of Public Works is sponsoring Emergency Watershed Protection Program project. Also, the Department of Public Works on the county of Hawaii, on the Big Island, they're sponsoring Emergency Watershed Protection Program, and DHHL is also sponsoring a project on their lands in Molokai. That's all the ones from the recent Kona low storms. I guess I'll turn it over to whoever's next, unless I'm sure there might be some questions at some point in time.
I think there's some time for questions at the very end, so I will go through here our standard equal opportunity employer and provider statement. It sounds like there's going to be questions at the end, so I'll skip this, and I'll probably end with this slide right here, which is all the different service centers that you can find throughout our service area. Again, we have one on every single major Hawaiian island except for Lanai. But that is covered by our Maui office, and so in Kahului. Contact information is there, and at any time you can always find the phone number for the local conservation office by looking at our service center locator. That's all that I have today, but I'll be online during the live Q&A, and I'll turn it back to Andrea. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Nicholas and John. Appreciate your presentation. Yes, we will do the Q&A after all the presentations, but if you have a burning question and you want to make sure it's not going to leave your mind, you can add it into the chat before the Q&A session, and we'll go back to the chat and take a look at any questions that come up. All right, so our next presenter is Dionne Chesler. She is the appraisal supervisor with the County of Hawaii's Department of Finance. She'll be speaking on one of their programs, but the program is also available for other counties as well, and I'll mention that in my presentation. But Dionne.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dionne Chesler from the County of Hawaii Real Property Tax Office. Thank you for the opportunity for speaking today. I'm going to go over here and get this going for you, and we'll talk about the programs. So what I'm going to give you today is a brief overview of the Disaster Relief Program, explain where the information can be found online, and walk you through the forms required to apply for disaster-related tax relief with the Hawaii County Real Property Tax Division. When real property is damaged or destroyed by a qualifying disaster, property owners may be eligible for a reduction of their real property taxes. The remission is calculated based on the amount of qualifying damage and the remaining portion of the tax year after the disaster has occurred. During this presentation, I'll show you where these forms are located online so that property owners, agencies, and community members can easily access them. So everybody, I believe you can see my screen here, and our URL is hawaiipropertytax.com. And once you're there on our main page, you can scroll down over to where it says Forms and click the Forms button. And then the next section you would go to is Disaster Emergency Relief Programs. Under that section, you're going to see 3 forms here. And I'm going to briefly explain what each of the forms are. So this first one here, this is the instructions for the application for disaster remission of taxes. This form serves as the guide for applicants and explains the overall process, eligibility, filing deadlines, and submission requirements. It also clarifies that the remission applies only to taxable real property improvements and not items such as landscaping, agriculture, retaining walls, fences, or driveways. The instruction also explains that the applicants must submit both the natural disaster worksheet and the notice of claim for disaster relief program together. So it kind of goes through all the details on what you need to do, where it goes. So I'm going to go to the second one. And this second one here is the Notice of Claim for Disaster Relief. We also call it Form 1936, but we have that in the upper left-hand corner. This is the actual claim form where the taxpayer formally requests disaster relief. On this form, the property owner identifies the parcel involved, which was going to be right up here, the type of disaster, the date of occurrence, and provides detailed description of the damages being claimed. This form also includes the official calculations completed by our department. So we would do a site visit and then we would fill in this portion. And then the next form, I'm going to go to that one, is the disaster worksheet form. Let me get to that one here. The natural disaster worksheet, also known as RP 48. This form helps the property owner identify and estimate the percentage of damage to the various building components. So as you can see here, this is just a sample of a description of some of the items, and then the owner would put in the percent that was destroyed here, and then our department will fill in this next portion over here. One very, very important point to emphasize is the filing deadline. While our form says that it must be submitted on or before June 30th of the taxable year involved. If you are past that deadline, please submit the form anyway. We always do our best to work with you and assist you. So again, if you are past our deadline of June 30th, please submit it anyway, and our zone appraisers will come out there, take a look at the damage, and see how they can help you based on the date that you submitted it. And again, applications may be submitted by mail, fax, email, or in person, either at our Hilo or our Kona offices. So in closing, if you have any disaster that happened to your real property, specifically building improvements, please go to our website, get those 3 forms, fill them out, reach out to us, turn it in. And our goal is to make the process as accessible and understandable as possible for the public. And thank you very much for your time today. I'll be available later after all of our presentations to answer any questions at the end of the program.
Thank you, Dionne. And again, I will have some links for the other counties as well for this program. Our next presenter is Brian Miyamoto. He is the Executive Director of the Hawaii Farm Bureau.
First of all, thank you, Andrea CTAHR, for putting this together. Thank you for all the others on the webinar today. Before I start, I want to emphasize what USDA said, what Kristen started out with FSA. Encourage our producers, even if there aren't any programs right now, you can see what can happen and how it can happen quickly. Sign up with USDA. Although there may not be something right now, that will help you with state funding, state programs, county programs, even some private programs like what we're going to be presenting today. So, okay. Not sure what's wrong with my screen. Doesn't seem to be forwarding. Okay. Quick overview. I think most of you folks know what's going on already. These are kind of the state numbers. I know there's another data point out there, but this is according to the State of Hawaii Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity based on the applicants that they got for their emergency grant program. So about 1,800 farms and ranches impacted, 29,000 acres, $49.1 million in estimated losses and damages. And we all know that's probably underreported. So some things that we've done so far, and I'll go into what our disaster relief fund is about, but we focused a lot as far as the Farm Bureau on the North Shore and Wailua area. In a partnership with the Ag Stewardship Hawaii, Hawaii Farmers Union, City and County Honolulu, HAIMA, DOT, and the National Guard, we've been doing some field assessments and recovery coordination through our South Oahu County Farm Bureau President, Jamie Barton. Conducted field assessments and direct outreach with agriculture communities across Wailua, covered over 1,200 acres of impacted areas encompassing about 300 plus farms, identified highest priority recovery needs, preventing farmers from returning fields to production, developed a community by community recovery framework prioritizing plantability first, followed by flood safety and infrastructure resilience. Part of that, I thought I saw CTAHR or at least Phyllis on there. I thank you, CTAHR, for some of the soil and water testing that you're doing, things that are necessary to get our farmers back into production. Identified approximately 5,500 linear feet of priority ditch clearing and drainage restoration across impacted agriculture areas. Andrea, I know you talked about El Nino. We're heading to hurricane season. We need to focus on these areas, or we could expect more flooding in some of the areas that can least afford to have it. We supported documentation and assessment of debris removal, road stabilization, culvert failures, bridge impacts, and soil rehabilitation needs. Developed both short-term emergency recovery recommendations and long-term watershed resilience strategies, and coordinate with the agencies and partners to identify and pursue funding through USDA, EWP, ECP, and conservation programs. Many of the things that were already reported by USDA partners. Again, focused on Wailua, we are looking at others of the North Shore, Kohuku, the west side, areas like Pa'akea Road, and Waimanalo, as well as our neighbor islands. We do have county farm bureaus in our neighbor islands, and they kind of take the lead when it comes to our members and producers on those islands. Okay, so again, not new to many on here. What are the challenges our farmers are facing as far as assistance? Many lack crop insurance. We heard a lot about crop insurance from some of our USDA partners. Some producers do not qualify for government programs. Many of our, if not majority of our farms in Hawaii, small and diversified farms, and we're concerned that they'll fall through the gaps, especially our immigrant farming communities. Leasehold farmers remain vulnerable, and language and access barriers exist. Again, many of our immigrant farmers may not know where to go, how to access these programs. So what are we doing? In a partnership with the Hawaii Agriculture Foundation, the Hawaii Farm Bureau started the Hawaii Farmers Disaster Relief Fund. It's something I think similar to what the Hawaii Farmers Union is doing, and something similar to what Department of Ag and Biosecurity's emergency grant program is. What's the purpose? To provide relief to help farmers to recover, to rebuild, continue farming. So far, I think we're over $250,000 raised. Looking at gap assistance, stabilization, focus. Again, some of these federal programs, they may not be immediate as far as the capital that we know our farmers and our ranchers need now. And again, we are looking at, being designed to support many of the farmers who do not qualify for many of the programs, the great programs that you heard USDA provides. That's our flyer. I think we've run it since the Kona 2, and we're continuing to fundraise, right? In fact, we just did the Aloha for Hawaii last week with Hawaii News Now, with many other nonprofits. Was a full day telethon. My understanding is they're still calculating the funds, but the farmers, many in the public have given to the farmers. So we're gonna obviously add that to the fund that we've already collected from others. Also, every penny that we collect, we are going to use for producers. We're not taking any administrative fees. There are no fees. Whatever we're collecting is going to go out to those who need it the most. And then there's another program running right now, Mai Tais and Burgers to Malama at participating Marriott, Waikiki Collection, and Sheraton Maui restaurants. They're donating $1 from Featured Burger and Mai Tais. Again, the funds will go directly to the Hawaii Farmers Disaster Relief Fund, partnership through May 31st. And, we're asking our residents, but most of our visitors, to support the farmers that were impacted by the Kona low. What do we anticipate? Again, because the program runs to the end of the month, we'll probably start taking applications in June. But we're looking at two different tiers. One tier, the emergency relief, $2,500 grants going to replanting, debris removal, irrigation, fencing, repairs. We know some of that work has already been done. We anticipate that we will basically, again, as USDA said, as Kristen said, to start photos and documentations. Our application process, we're going to streamline it, pretty simple, but we are going to require some form of documentation to ensure that it is going to the farmers and ranchers that really need this assistance. Tier 2, we estimate between $50,000 and $10,000 grants, again, for infrastructure recovery, orchard recovery, severe operational impacts. We're going to give some priority considerations to those farmers that don't have crop insurance, that did have severe losses, unable to access any other aid, that are under financial hardship. We know many of these are, and a risk of losing a farmland or to stop farming. We want to prevent any loss of any of our farms that are in production right now or in production before the Kona lows hit. Okay. So a couple of things. We are going to consider aquaculture operations also. Again, the application process, we do have our application process really simple. Again, streamline some basic information, land status, what kind of disaster, what kind of losses you had, brief discussion, the description of the damage, how much damage you had. Again, we are going to consider, do you have crop insurance or not? That's not necessarily saying that we're insure or fund somebody who does have crop insurance. We know that crop insurance is not going to cover everything. We want some photos, again, maybe some receipts, some estimates, basic documentation. And the other thing is, you don't have to be a Farm Bureau member. You don't have to be a member of the Hawaii Ag Foundation. We want to help those that aren't getting as much help as others may be. So again, it's a pretty simple grant program. We anticipate that we'll roll it out in June because we are still collecting funds for the grant program. But we are a statewide organization, so this will be for all parts of the state that were impacted by the Kona law.
Thank you, Brian.
That's all I have on here.
Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. All right. Our next presenter, second to last presenter, Shari Williams. She's the Grants and Program Manager with the Hawaii Farmers Union Foundation. Thanks, Shari.
Thanks, Andrea. Okay. Aloha, everyone. My name is Shari Williams, and I am the Grants and Program Manager for Hawaii Farmers Union Foundation and our sister organization, Hawaii Farmers Union. Our mission is to build a resilient, self-sustaining agriculture system that reduces Hawaii's reliance on imported food, supports regenerative farming practices, and fosters a thriving local agricultural economy. So we launched our flood response fund soon after the Kona low storms to provide relief to impacted farmers, help them restore their farms, help restore food access to communities, and really help our farmers, kind of get through these first steps on the way to the more longer term full rebuild. So since the storms, we've raised over $800,000 for relief efforts for farmers. Right now, there's no deadline for the application. The application is open. There's no deadline, but we do hope that you apply soon. As funds are awarded and we start winding down, we'll post a closing date on the application page. And we are aiming for our first award letters to go out at the end of this month or early June. So when you get the award letter, you will ask for some documentation, which I'll go over in a little bit. And then when you send back that documentation, we'll get the funds out to you. So I'll post the application link in the chat after this, and it will also be linked in the slides that Andrea sends out. And we'll have two links. So one is the regular application link, and then the other is the application with translator support through Google Translate. And please share the link with your network, other farmers you know, but please note that we're avoiding posting the link publicly or on social media, just kind of keeping it in emails and within networks. So just a quick run through of the application. We were really trying to make it equitable, simple, and straightforward. So these questions should help you quantify your losses and your impact, but hopefully, they're not too complicated. So first, of course, farm information, name, address, and you can drop a pin on a map if you don't have an exact address for your farm. And then check boxes to document the type of damage or impact that you have. So crop loss, greenhouse damage, road or culvert damage, topsoil or erosion, irrigation, fencing, feed forage loss, and orchard and perennial crop loss. And then for each of those that you check off, you'll be able to provide more details. So, how many acres, how many crops, and then estimated loss revenue and estimated cost to repair. And you can also attach photos of each of those types of damage as well. And then you also have space to document other farm damage or operational impact on your farm, like business disruptions, revenue impacts, or other operational damages caused by the storm. And since this funding is for damages specifically for farming operations, when you fill out the application, please keep the focus on that rather than housing or personal dwelling damages. And please include all the information that you want to share in the application. Unfortunately, the team is not able to review material submitted outside of the form, so please keep it all within the application. And if we do need more info, then we'll follow up with you. And then if selected for funding, we do require a completed W-9 and a legal mailing address to send payment. And that is also a checkbox on the form. And that's the whole application. How long it takes really depends, on the types of damage you're documenting. Obviously, if you check off all the types of damage, then it'll take you longer than, if you only check off 1 or 2 types of damage. And I just wanted to share a couple of free events we have coming up for storm-affected farmers. So on May 30th, we're hosting an in-person pro bono legal clinic for folks on the North Shore, with application assistance for some of the USDA programs that we just heard about, insurance claims and things like that. And that is in person on the North Shore. But on June 4th, we're doing a live webinar over Zoom about food safety. So along with North Shore EVP, we're hosting a webinar to cover some post-storm food safety considerations and guidelines. And I'll put those links in the chat as well. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me directly. My email's right there. You can also email our general admin email. It's hfuu@hfuu.org. Our outreach team monitors that very closely, and they will either reply to you, or if they don't have the answer right away, they'll forward your email to someone who can help you. Thanks, everyone. I'll drop those links in the chat now.
Right. Thanks, Shari. All right. I'm gonna get my presentation up. Okay, so just some of the damage that occurred on Oahu as well as on the Big Island from this floods and why we're trying to continue the help. So the Presidential Disaster Declaration covers the counties of Hawaii, Maui, the city and county of Honolulu, as well as for some of the private and nonprofit organizations in the Kalawao and Kauai counties, which are only eligible to apply for the economic injury disaster loans. But if you're on Hawaii, Maui, in Honolulu, you can apply for both, for the physical damage loans as well as the economic injury loans based out of the U.S. Small Business Administration. The damage forms deadline is June 16, and for economic injury filing, the deadline is January 7, 2027. For more information, I do have some links there, and I will be posting my presentation on the same website that we have at the Hawaii Coffee ed.com website. So just a flyer that was sent out through SBA. It's got some of the recovery center information there for Hilo, Kihei, Kailua, Kona, as well as Oahu and Waialua. And again, you can find more information at the links and to file for either the economic injury disaster loans or for the physical disaster loans. But be aware for the June 14 physical damage disaster loan deadline, especially. So out of the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity, they do have a specialty crop blocks grant program. It will close June 8. It's been open for a few weeks now, and it's open to eligible nonprofit organizations, local, state, and federal government entities, for-profit organizations, universities, and individuals. And it might help to provide some funding that can help support specialty crops projects. They also have an agricultural loan division that if you need loans to help recover, you might take a look at the information there at their website and give them a call to see if you qualify. Let's see, Dionne had talked about the Disaster Remissions of Taxes program for the County of Hawaii, but again, there is similar programs for the County of Kauai, the City and County of Honolulu, as well as the County of Maui. And so, she mentioned about the deadline of June 30, 2026, but if you're already filling out the forms, you're a little late, just submit it anyway, and they'll see what they can do to help support you if possible. So these are the links for the different counties, and you can check out their forms are a little different at each site. So depending on where you are at, you'll want to go and click on the links for your county in particular. Brian did mention the Agricultural Stewardship Hawaii. They do have a website there that provides Kona farm and ranch recovery funding, fact sheets. They have a great disaster resource guide as well as a Hawaii Ag disaster response tool. So it's a great resource to farmers who would like to check that out. UH-CTAHR's Agricultural Diagnostic Service Center is providing up to 3 free samples for each of the different testing services that are listed there below. So soil nutrient, plant tissue nutrient, plant disease, as well as insect identification. And these services go through July 21st of this year if your farm was impacted by the March or April flooding occurrences. So you just need to go to their website. You would need to confirm that your operations were affected by the recent floods when you're ordering the services. If you need support in determining what types of tests are best for your farm, you can contact your local extension agent. They do accept credit cards online, and you are required to pay. Sorry, if you're getting the free services, you would not need to pay, but if you are not part of the flooding, the folks affected by the flooding, you would pay before dropping off your sample. They do not accept checks or cash. You would be dropping off your samples for testing on Mondays from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. or on Tuesdays from 9 a.m. to 11. The samples are shipped to the ADSC labs either on Oahu or Hilo on Tuesday afternoons typically. So you want to make sure your samples are there before. If you have any questions, the ADSC contact information is there. They're open Monday through Friday from 7:45 to 4:30 p.m. And during the Q&A, I see Kawahi is on. She is with the ADSC labs, and she can also help to answer any questions. GoFarm Hawaii has another website and resource for agricultural flood loss with their assessment tools. So you can use their tool to estimate flood-related crop and farm losses for insurance, disaster assistance, and grant documentation purposes or for your own records. Once you submit through this assessment tool, it can pop out a PDF summary to you by email. So you can check that out. On one of the CTAHR websites, there are CTAHR publications for flooding and farm food safety in Hawaii, as well as tropical cyclone emergency management for farmers. There are links for the Hawaii Ag Disaster Response, Disaster Recovery Hub, Extension Disaster Education Network, and some short-term and long-term recovery recommendations as well. And if you haven't signed up for any of these listservs or newsletters, it's a great way of being in touch, knowing what's coming out and being in the know as soon as things are happening so you don't miss any deadlines. So the Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity, they have a listserv and you can email them to join theirs. The Maui County Department of Ag also has a newsletter that goes out. USDA emails and text messages can be signed up for. Their link is there as well. There are county emails and newsletters that you can sign up to receive. The Oahu Resource Conservation and Development Council, RCND newsletters are wonderful. They have a lot of information and resources there as well. And a lot of our CTAHR extension agents also have their own contact lists and newsletters too. So you might want to get in touch with your local extension office and see if you can join up with them. I see a lot of information, flyers also coming out through social media. So that might be another resource there. And there's so much more out there. So, keep in touch with us. We got to meet you halfway as well. See what's out there in knowing. And, if you're unsure of where your extension offices are, there's a map at the CTAHR website. We've got at least one on every island except Lanai. We do have an extension office on Molokai, on Maui, Big Island, Oahu, and Kauai. And you can locate the different personnel and faculty and staff as well by clicking on that link to find us. And again, I posted up my presentation at the hawaiicoffeeed.com website, where we did have the event for today's disaster assistance and crop insurance programs webinar. So you can click that link and I'll try and post up the other presenters' PDFs as well there as I receive them. If you have any questions, you can give me a buzz through email. If I don't have the answers, I'll try and share contact information of folks that may be able to help support you better. With that, I will close up and we'll open it up for question and answers. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate your time for joining us, our presenters. Thank you so much for all the information that you provided. I will follow up with you guys again for the recording. And if you haven't already sent me your presentation, go ahead and send it to me. PDF is fine. And we can post it up online for folks to review. All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day. And hopefully we'll see you guys again online another time.
Thank you. Aloha, everyone.